Good morning, dear ones. Thank you for setting aside this sacred time and space that we might be together and have this time to take care of ourselves and each other. I invite you to take a breath and settle into your seat, into this time and space as we listen together to the prelude. And also, if you didn't know, we are so delighted this morning to welcome Verdis Robertson, our own, as our preacher and minister this morning.
Welcome to First Universalist Church of Rochester. where we are called to nurture the spirit and serve the community. Whoever you are, we welcome you. Wherever you are coming from, we welcome you too. Whomever you love, we welcome you. Whatever your dreams are, we welcome you. We welcome all of you. It is good to be together this morning. Amen. If you are here for the first time this morning, we especially welcome you. We have a visitor's form that can be found in the chat. Please click on it and fill out the form so that we can offer you a welcome beyond this worship service. And as we gather this morning, we want to invite you to pop in to the chat and offer a greeting. You can find this at the top or the bottom of your screen with the icon of a text bubble and the word chat. So please pop on over and offer a greeting. And it could be a wave of hello or I'm here, whatever you prefer. Welcome to worship at First Universalist. And while we're welcoming each other, let us join hearts and voices in singing together this morning, recognizing that even as we are singing muted in our home, we are creating a song across our city of Rochester, the country, Vermont, and the world. Let us sing together hymn 347, Gather the Spirit. Our call to worship comes from the Reverend Dr. Kristen Harper, and it's entitled Each Day. Each day provides us with an opportunity to love again, to hurt again, to embrace joy, to experience unease, to discover the tragic. Each day provides us with an opportunity to live. This day is no different. This hour is no more unique than the last, except maybe today, maybe now, among friends and fellow journeyers, maybe for the first time, maybe silently, we can share ourselves. Come, let us worship together.
As we light our chalice at First Universalist Church and in your own homes, will you join me in saying our chalice words in unison? May we be a people of welcome, here to grow in heart and mind and spirit, and may we reach out to serve our community. Please join me in our affirmation of faith, followed by our doxology. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve humanity in fellowship, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the source and meaning of life. Thus do we covenant with each other and with all. This religious community exists by its mission as a fire exists by burning. But fire cannot burn without fuel. And it is the time, the energy, the imagination, the vision, the creativity, the compassion, the love, and the financial support of the members and friends of this community that fuels our mission to nurture and sustain a welcoming, inclusive, and diverse liberal religious community that transforms lives and serves the world. Your support, the free and generous support of each and every member and friend of this community, is what fuels this community and its mission. And without your support, the flame of justice, community, and love cannot burn brightly to warm ourselves and be a beacon in a world threatened by division and fear. Please click the link in the chat to give online to First Universalist Church, or feel free to send a check to the church.
Votre est un paysage choisi que vent charmant masque ses bergamasques. Je ondule et dansant et quasi triste seul le déguisement fantasque. Tout en chantant sur le mon émineux, l'amour vainqueur et la vie opportune. croit le bonheur, et le chanson se mêle au clair de lune. Au calme clair de lune, triste et beau, qui fait lever les oiseaux dans les arbres et sangloter d'extase les jeux d'eau. Les granges et roses vertes parmi les marbres.
Good morning, First Universalist friends. Today's story is about Frederick Douglass's oldest daughter and oldest child, Rosetta. The book is called Rosetta, Rosetta, Sit By Me by Linda Walvord, illustrated by Eric Velasquez. Now, this is a 97-page chapter book, which I highly recommend, but I adapted it for today and abridged it to fit in our time frame. Mrs. Tracy's female seminary wasn't far from our house, but it seemed very far to me. I had to walk there by myself. Papa would have walked with me, but he was in Ohio giving speeches against slavery. I was afraid, since all the other students would be white. Even though I'm already 9 years old, I had never attended a real school before. When I was 6 and 7, Papa was away giving speeches in England. Mama didn't send me to school because she needed my help looking after my 3 brothers while she made shoes for a local shoe factory. Sometimes a Quaker lady came to my house and helped me learn to read. When I was 8, I went to live with the 2 Quaker Mott sisters in Albany, New York, to catch up on my studies. Several other children, both black and white, came to their house every day for lessons. When we moved to Rochester, New York, Papa looked into my going to public school. He was told I could only go to the colored school on the other side of town, and not the all-white school in our own neighborhood. So here I was on my way to Miss Tracy's, a private school. When I arrived at school, a teacher led me past classrooms of other girls to a quiet, empty classroom. She pointed to a desk and gave me several books. "You will study these," she said. Then she left me. A long time passed. Did I misunderstand? I didn't know what to do. I opened the books. I heard the other girls going outside for recess. A teacher came in. "Will I go outside and play now?" I asked. "No, Rosetta, I'm here to look at your work." She opened the book. "Do this page." I didn't cry or argue. I just did the page. When recess was over and the school was full again, the teacher came back. She looked at my work and nodded. "Very good. Now you may go outside. It's your turn to play." "But everyone is finished. I won't have anyone to play with." "Never mind that. This is your recess," said the teacher. Under a big tree, I sat on the swing. I saw the other girls looking at me out the window, and one of them waved. Then a teacher came to the window. She motioned to the girls to sit down. I felt very sad and ashamed. My first day of school was very, very hard. Papa hadn't said I would be all alone. What could I do? If I told Mama, she would be mad at the school and keep me home. Papa would help me, and he would want me to be brave. I would wait for Papa to come home in about 2 weeks. At last, Papa returned. After we all got big hugs and kisses, he sat with me and looked me in the eyes. "How did it go in school, Rosetta?" I couldn't hold back my tears anymore.
They keep me all alone in a room by myself. No one teaches me. They won't let me play with the other girls at recess, and I even eat lunch all by myself." I sobbed into his big arms. "Then we shall go together tomorrow, you and I," he said. "My daughter says that she is being kept away from other pupils. Is this true?" Papa asked. "Yes, it is," Miss Tracy replied coolly. "If I had done otherwise, it would have injured my school and its reputation. We are a private school, and so we are obligated to observe the wishes of the parents." "If you were going to exclude my daughter, you should have told me that in the beginning." Papa firmly reminded Miss Tracy that he had paid tuition like the other parents. Miss Tracy grew flustered. "There would be opposition to your daughter sitting in the white classroom." "I don't believe that," said Papa. "Let's ask the students." "Very well, then. I will put the question to them." To my surprise, Miss Tracy led us to a classroom. I looked at the faces of the white girls. No one looked uneasy. Some of them smiled at me. "Girls, Mr. Douglass is here to see if his daughter may be in this class. How many of you want Rosetta to be in your class?" The arm of every single girl shot into the air. "No, you do not understand. How many of you feel that Rosetta Douglass should be allowed to come into this class as a pupil?" Again, every girl lifted her hand in the air. I do, they called. Miss Tracy grew red-faced and flustered. "Where would she sit then?" she demanded. The girls started to compete. "Next to me. No, let her sit here. Rosetta, Rosetta, sit by me." Papa and I looked at each other and grinned. The children's hearts were right. That evening, without telling us, Miss Tracy called a parents' meeting. Miss Tracy asked how many parents wanted me to enroll. All the hands went up, except for one, Mr. Horatio G. Warner, the editor of the Rochester Courier. "I do not believe this enrollment is suitable. It betrays the boundaries that society and nature have set in place for the education of our youth." Mr. Warner went on about how Papa was not from Rochester and had just come to bother the good citizens here. After his long speech, Miss Tracy took another vote. Again, all the parents except Mr. Warner voted to have me come to the school. Miss Tracy said, "Since there is one objection, Rosetta will not be allowed. I am responsible for a safe, peaceful environment, and this is a threat to our peace." Miss Tracy met me on the steps of the school the next day. "Rosetta, you are no longer a student here. Please return home." I just stood there. She had to tell me twice to go back home. I fled so fast that no one could see the tears of shame stinging my eyes. "Where will I go now?" I asked after telling my parents what happened. "You will go to the best school we can find," said Papa, though Mama hoped to keep me home safe, away from more turmoil. That very day, my father communicated with the Mott sisters in Albany about having me back for that school year. Papa and I were on the train to Albany that very evening. While I was away, Papa did not let up on Mr. Warner or the Rochester schools. He told the story in his newspaper, the North Star, seen by readers both black and white across the country, including a young lawyer named Abraham Lincoln. Papa kept up the pressure. Every year for 9 years, he asked the Rochester School Board for a special meeting to reconsider the question of how they segregated their school. When I came back to Rochester, I had a baby sister, Annie, and Papa hired a private tutor to come to the house each day to teach my siblings and I. When I was 15, I attended Oberlin College and became a teacher. Sometimes my students were adults who worked during the day and came to study in the evenings. One day in 1857, my father flew into the coffee shop where I was talking with friends. "Rosetta, Rosetta, we've done it! We've won! The Rochester Public School Board is going to let Annie enter our local school for the first grade. Segregation is over in Rochester!" I saw the tears in Papa's eyes. 9 years of steady protests had made a difference. I hoped that Annie would have a moment like I did all those years ago, of cheerful voices calling, "Sit by me." The end. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Jillian Beeman, and I am a member of the Board of Trustees. I want to begin my testimony by saying thank you to all of the church members who came before I entered this church in August of 2017. This church exists because of you and your commitment to be a source of good in our community. My household consists of myself and my two kids, Joey and Laura. My parents live in Florida and Ohio, and I don't have family locally except for my mom's brother in Fairport. This year has brought a lot of change in our lives. At the end of last March, my kids were sent home from school with all of their belongings and 3 weeks worth of work. My daughter Laura, who was 10 years old and in 5th grade, was assigned work that would take her about 30 to 60 minutes a day to complete on her own. My son Joseph, who was 15 years old then, had a school laptop and was asked to complete assignments independent of a teacher or instruction. I was placed on what I thought would be a temporary furlough from my job of 12 years at the YMCA. The orchestra I played in canceled our concert. My kids' activities came to a halt. Our spring break trip to DC was canceled. Everything, as you know, stopped. So like everyone else, we waited for life to resume. It didn't resume back to normal, but kept changing. My stepfather lost 3 family members to the virus in March. His sister, brother-in-law, and nephew. It ended up on the national news. We tried to support my stepdad from a distance and kept waiting for life to resume. In April, my stepmom, a healthcare worker, got the virus. My dad got the virus, and my step-grandma, Mary, got the virus. We waited for them to recover. One of them did not. Mary, my step-grandma, passed away at the end of May after a long illness. We couldn't gather to mourn her loss. It was extremely hard to witness the sorrow and not be able to mourn together. At this time, the end of May, my kids were not back in school. I was not back to work, and we had not resumed life as we knew it. We waited, we worried, we watched as things around us kept changing, but there was nothing we could do. We felt helpless. 2 days after the news of Mary's death, I received a phone call from my supervisor at the Y, letting me know my job position was eliminated. Another permanent change. I had to look for a new job in a world that wasn't hiring, and I had 2 kids now at home each day, not going back to school for the rest of the school year, and they also needed care. I explained my situation because there are so many other parents like me who have also struggled with changes in this past year. Maybe you can relate or know someone who has lost a loved one or lost their job. I share it because it was a difficult time and the church has been there the whole way through. While our church services and meetings changed and adapted during that time, it was still there. I received phone calls and emails from church members checking in on each other. I received an invitation to play my bassoon at the service on Mother's Day. I received a card on Mother's Day from the caring committee. I talked to Reverend Lane and she just listened. I could still see all of you and participate as a worship associate. I was able to volunteer in the summer to help with the church's support of the protests, giving water and a clean bathroom to those who needed it. I joined the Board of Trustees in June of 2020. In a world where everything had stopped, I had opportunities to move. These things were so important to me during that time. In July of 2020, I found an amazing job in my field as a fundraising professional, and I am still employed today at a private middle school working towards providing educational equity for underserved youth in Rochester. I feel fortunate that it allows me the flexibility to work in person and be at home on the days I need to with my kids for school. My kids have now resumed a hybrid school schedule, and depending on the community rate for if it's lowered, hopefully we'll be back in person 4 days a week before the end of the school year. I've witnessed firsthand how the school system changes to the virus this year has taken a toll on our youth. The church is so important, to have in these moments in our lives. I am so grateful and do not take for granted that I had the support of our community here through all of this change. Because of places like First Universalist, we will come through these changes stronger. As I look forward to our church's future, I will support the church with a financial pledge and with volunteer support as I am able to make sure that it is still here for future generations. It was here for my family this year because of those who have committed to keeping it going to this day. Thank you for considering joining me in making your pledge to this year's stewardship campaign, Forward Through the Ages.
Thank you so much for that testimony. I invite you now into this reverent time of sharing joys and sorrows of our gathered community. If you would like to, you can place your hand over your heart to be able to listen from a heart-centered place. As we place stones into a bowl, I will read out loud the joys and sorrows of our gathered community. All are also invited to share your joys and concerns joys and sorrows, into the chat that we may hear from the community gathered here. And from Marty Eggers, it's a joy to welcome, and I'm going to add Princess Helen Ripley Eggers of Oxford, her seventh grandchild into the world. She was born in Oxford, United Kingdom on Thursday, March 18th. All are doing well, including 4-year-old brother, Prince Russell of Oxford. A joy, definitely. Paula says that she is thankful to Jillian. Congratulations on a year of courage and fortitude. And Dwight has a joy. Going to a COVID-safe movie. Definitely a joy, something I miss as well. And the Eckberts say that the prayers for the community of Boulder, Colorado. There's a sorrow for Reverend Michelle, sending love and strength to your family during this time. Stephen is so grateful to have Antonio home, safe and sound, and will be getting vaccinated soon. Thanks for all that support through the difficult process of immigration and back and forth to Brazil. Amen to that. And Carol and Luke and John says that their dog is recovering from a severe joint injury. Definitely a joy. And Trish has a joy that finally going to see her mother, who is 96, in Iowa for Easter after 15 months of not being able to visit because of COVID. Absolutely a joy, Trish. Beth, in spite of COVID, she is joyful to be able to spend yesterday being of useful use by volunteering with a rescue dog, taking 12 dogs to spay and neuter clinic. She loves animals. Tess, a sorrow for the suppression of democracy in Georgia. Karen John says, and Carol got her first COVID shot this week in one of the new pop-up sites. Aaron says that sorrow that the Rochester Public Schools are still more segregated than they were in the 1950s. Dick Gilbert says that the sorrow that Dick Fetz, longtime member of First Universalist and First Unitarian, is now in hospice. He is 96. We'll carry him in our thoughts and prayers. Elizabeth O says that thanks to all who put this stunning service together with such a great presenter. Cheers. Michelle says that her deep stepson has COVID and is quarantining in her room. We can't help my mother-in-law with cancer because we are quarantining. We will hold you in our hearts. And there's the joy for the taste of spring weather this week. The sound of birds outside Emma's office gives her energy and happiness. Also joy and sorrow combo that her family has finally been able to begin planning the memorial service for her grandfather in May, who passed away last April. We hold you in our hearts as well. Shirley Malone says that she got her second COVID vaccine this past Wednesday and now wants Robin gets her first today. That puts the 6 of them in the family able to have dinners together inside. Definitely a joy. And Carol and John, a joy and a relief that the Vermont tornado passed me unharmed. A joy indeed. Climate change, right? And we drop one final stone into the bowl to represent all the joys and sorrows left unspoken in the silent sanctuaries of our hearts. May all be held in the love, the heart of love. And today we light a white candle. Actually, it's not a white candle, but we'll light a candle to acknowledge that we are a community affected by grief, loss, and fear of living through a pandemic, which is still ongoing. May this candle's flame hold our experiences around this horrific disease, and may its light be a beacon of hope and reminder that we are not alone. Now, please join me in the spirit of prayer, meditation. Again, you can have your hand to your heart, get into a position or posture of meditation. And first, giving thanks for the breath of life that is flowing through us. Spirit of life and love, God of many names, God of no names, on this Palm Sunday, in observance of Passover, our prayers will not stop the pain and griefs. No, our prayers will not stop the killings. Our prayers will not bring back the innocent, and our prayers will not relax the clenched fists of hatred. Our prayers will not open the greedy hearts of those who profit from death, but our prayers can gently break the silence of despair. Our prayers can channel our rage at the machine that drives hatred. Our prayers can embolden us to be able to be the hands and the feet of peace. Our prayers can encourage others of faith to awake, arise, and act. We do not pray for a miracle. We pray to be reminded of how we can be the miracle. Only together, with an audacious belief that a paradigm shift is possible with active hope and faithful resolve, we can be the change we seek. Together, we can make it stop. So may it be.
bridges between our divisions. I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony. Building bridges between our divisions, I reach out to you, will you reach out to me? With all of our voices and all of our visions, friends, we could make such sweet harmony.
Our reading this morning comes from the words of Rosetta Douglas Sprague. The greatest trial, perhaps, that mother was called to endure was leaving her Massachusetts home for the Rochester home where father established the North Star. Mother occasionally traveled with father on his short trips, but not as often as he would have liked, as she was a housekeeper who felt her presence was necessary at home, as she was known to say, to keep things straight. Her life in Rochester was not less active in the cause of the slave. If anything, she was more self-sacrificing, and it was a long time before she was understood. The atmosphere in which she was placed lacked the genial cordiality that greeted her in her Massachusetts home. There was only a few that learned to know her, for she drew around herself a certain reserve after meeting her new acquaintances that forbade any near approach to her. Prejudice in the early 1840s in Rochester ran rampant, and mother became more distrustful. Here ends the reading.
Paul and Silas, bound in jail, had no money to go their bail. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. Paul and Silas thought they were lost. The dungeon shook and the chains came off. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize. Hold on. Hold on. The only chain that a man can stand is that chain, oh, hand in hand. Keep your eyes on that prize and hold on. Hold on. You know, the one thing we did right was the day we started to fight. Keep your eyes on that prize and hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Hold on. Keep your eyes on that prize and hold on. hold on.
Keep your eyes on the prize. A freedom song adapted from the Negro spiritual, Keep Your Hand on the Plow. A song that I can imagine Frederick Douglass singing in his heart, born enslaved, on the eastern shore of Maryland, dreaming of freedom. A dream that was realized before slavery's official end, that he played a significant role in achieving. First for himself, and then for a nation. I must confess that neither version I grew up singing at all, but I only know the song as a theme song for the PBS series that documented the civil rights movement, Eyes on the Prize, which I highly recommend. Growing up there in Rochester, New York, that series was how I was introduced to Thurgood Marshall and the Brown versus Board of Education, the lynching of Emmett Till, Rosa Parks and the Montgomery bus boycott, Bayard Rustin and the March on Washington, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his dream of a beloved community. I came across Frederick Douglass much later in life, and the true story of his life in Rochester, New York, much later than that. A story that began in freedom in Massachusetts and his desire for true freedom, which led him to being fired from William Lloyd Garrison's Anti-Slavery Society after moving to Rochester, New York, and founding the North Star Anti-Slavery publication. The dream of freedom for all nourished his work in fighting for it. And he was able to see in his lifetime the abolition of slavery in this country. But I offer another one of his dreams that was not realized, but deferred. It speaks to the second principle of Unitarian Universalism, a principle that invites us to uphold, lift up, and hopefully to work toward justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Notice there is no Oxford comma there. Justice, equity, and compassion. The dream that all people be treated fairly and kindly. Frederick didn't have to go far to find that the lack of this and the effects of that had on people. In fact, the effects were felt right in his own household, namely by his wife and children, especially when they moved to Rochester. His wife, Anna Marie Douglass, immediately noticed a difference in her treatment and how different Rochesterians regarded her from her experience living in Massachusetts, where she was born, free. Whereas she was used to being treated with equity and compassion, but not so much in Rochester. Her daughter recalled in a passage that I read earlier that it was perhaps her mother's greatest trial, as anti-slavery activists such as Wendell Phillips and William Lloyd Garrison and their wives were always particularly kind to her. Even when the Douglasses attended an anti-slavery convention in Syracuse, the Unitarian minister, Reverend Samuel J. May, opened the spacious parlors of the May Mansion in honor of them, where they were served and she was welcomed and accepted at the table. But Rochesterians were colder to her and kept their distance. She was not treated fairly or kindly there and kept to herself. Unfortunately, as Rosetta recalled, the opportunity for a knowledge of books had been denied to her, the lack of which she greatly deplored. This could be the reason, but really? Her family and household duties prevented any great achievement, although she was able to read a little. Also by contact with people of culture and education, and they were her true friends. Her improvement was somewhat marked. Rosetta also often read to her and to keep her up to date with the anti-slavery efforts, and she would smile And Rosetta was her hope and her dream. And she wanted to keep her safe from the pain of prejudice and racism, but lacked the power to do so, as we heard from Reverend Michelle's story. You see, in order to support the North Star and to advance the battle against slavery, Frederick was on the road often on lecture tours, and Anna maintained their home in Rochester. Rochester was a strategic location, close to Canada for one thing, and was home to formidable activists of social justice, and still is. Yet, Anna had few friends, unlike her husband, and even her sons became targets of prejudice. And as Rosetta recalled, in Rochester during the 1840s, and I quote, "There was much hostile feelings against the colored boys, and as father would be from home most of the time, he felt anxious about them." Hostile feelings against boys of color in Rochester, surely you just. Anna was very worried for their safety. They certainly were not being treated fairly or with compassion, and she recommended their employment in the printing press of the North Star. Frederick agreed, and at the ages of 9 and 11, Frederick Jr. and Lewis were perched on blocks and taught the trade instead of carrying and delivering the papers to be kept safe from the harm of Rochester's prejudice and its streets. This was in the 1840s. Nevertheless, the dreams of justice, equity, and compassion that were not afforded to his own household fueled the fires of his activism beyond the worth and dignity and freedom. But Anna, she was the unsung hero of the anti-slavery movement. Regardless of how she was treated by and regarded by Rochesterians, she made sure that Frederick looked his best on his lectures tours. She smoothed out the tucks in his linen and forwarded a fresh supply, especially when he was on a long journey. So all the pictures that we have of him dressed impeccably was because of Anna. And as an agent of the Underground Railroad in Rochester, Anna worked tirelessly along that line. Rosetta recalled that in order to accommodate more freedom seekers, especially after the passage of the 1850 Fugitive Slave Act, which essentially extended the boundaries of slave catching well into the North, Frederick enlarged their home with a suite of rooms for the freedom seekers seeking and freedom seekers fleeing to Canada. Rosetta said, "It was not unusual occurrence for mother to be called up at all hours of the night, hot or cold, as the case might be, to prepare supper for hungry lots of fleeing humanity." I argue her contribution to the cause of freedom and justice was just as important and revolutionary as her husband's. But history has not been kind or fair to her until recently. But as Rosetta was denied education in Rochester, as Reverend Michelle shared, Anna became more distrustful. And when the Douglas's home burned down in 1872 by what Frederick attributed to, and I quote, "the spirit of the Ku Klux," it had an impact on Anna. It was the home that she had managed for many years, the home that she was able to play a significant role during the antebellum years of working towards justice, equity, and compassion, where she served as the host to prominent anti-slavery activists and fugitive slaves alike, fairly and kindly, and it was gone. Hatred, racism, and terrorism tried to destroy their dreams. Nevertheless, she held on. Even as they moved away from Rochester to the DC area, she continued to treat everyone she encountered fairly and kindly. Among the condolences received upon her death in 1882, the Honorable James McCormick Dalzell of Ohio, a Civil War veteran and member of the Ohio General Assembly, wrote to Frederick, "You know, I never met your good wife but once. And then her welcome was so warm and sincere and unaffected, her manner altogether so motherly, her goodbye so full of genuine kindness and hospitality as to impress me tenderly and fill my eyes with tears as I now recall it." This is one way to build a beloved community, even if the returns only come when we are gone. According to the King Center, the beloved community is a term that was first coined in the early 1900s by the philosopher theologian Josiah Royce, founder of the Fellowship of Reconciliation. Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., a member of that fellowship, popularized the term and provided it with a deeper global meaning. It is a vision that all people can share in the abundance of the earth. Poverty, hunger, and homelessness will not be tolerated because we, with all of our human decency, would not allow it. And racism and all forms of discrimination, bigotry, and prejudice will be replaced by an all-inclusive spirit of love and humanity. Sounds good, right? A dream, a vision that became a cause and a movement, a community that we as Unitarian Universalists work or should be working toward building, the beloved community. But racism still exists. And a new version of Jim Crow is coming to the light of day, no longer hidden and can no longer be ignored. This is detrimental to and counteracts the building of a beloved community. If only the inherent worth and dignity of all people was truly realized. We must live this principle in order to build the beloved community. If only justice, equity, and compassion in our human relations were truly realized, so would Anna's dream be realized. So would Frederick's dream be realized, as it nourished their actions to the very day their lives ended. But they weren't. We have their dreams in the palms of our hands. To build a beloved community, not just within the community of our congregations, but to spread it outwards to our larger community and to the world. A community in which all people can share in the abundance of the earth and protect it for love's sake. A community where poverty, hunger, and homelessness is not tolerated because we won't allow it. A community where all people, their uniqueness, their colors, their nationalities, their origins, their religious practices, their spiritualities are not eradicated, but affirmed in love. A community that has no place for racism, no place for discrimination, no place for bigotry, and no place for prejudice. A community built by the all-inclusive spirit of love and humanity. We are still a long ways from realizing that dream. But as we end this third month of the year 2021, we are still dreaming this dream, but giving it new flavors and fresh tones, unlocking our creative energy of human agencies to get it done. If we work diligently to dismantle racism and all forms of oppression from within ourselves and our institutions, the dream of realizing our principles of justice, equity, and compassion will not be deferred. The dream of a multiracial and inclusive democracy will not be deferred. The dream of a land free of hatred will not be deferred. The dream of a nation that has grappled with its past and rectified harms done will not be deferred. The dream of a country where all are housed, all are fed, and all are paid wages that can be lived on with ease will not be deferred. The dream of every child, every parent, every elder, every prisoner and detainee being treated fairly and kindly. The dream of justice flowing down like waters and peace like an ever-flowing stream will not be deferred. The dreams of Mark and Donna Morris Reed, the dreams of the late Bernice Cook, the dreams of the late Eunice and Jim Egbird will not be deferred or denied. It is that time to awaken the power of love within us, and that is way more powerful than hate. That power of love that is way more powerful than denials, more powerful than suppression, and more powerful than supremacy. Because we really do believe that there is joy somewhere, there is hope somewhere, there is love somewhere. Can I get a witness? So hold on to your dreams until we find it. Hold on until we get to that promised land that dreamers have dreamed before us and that we are taking up their mantle. Let that power of love help us to build the Rochester of Douglass's dreams. And let all of us live to see that glorious day in body or in spirit. May it be so. Blessed be. Ashe and amen. Our final hymn is There Is More Love Somewhere. And we invite you to remain muted, but sing out joyfully from home, again creating a collective song from wherever we find ourselves.
There is more love somewhere. There is more love somewhere.
As we extinguish our chalice flame this morning, let us read together the words printed in your order of service and on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but we keep its light in our hearts with its message of love and justice, taking it outside these walls to the world we live in until we are together again. And beloveds, dear friends, it's been a pleasure being with you all again. And though we cannot be seated next to one another, we are still connected in this community through the power of Zoom. And as we come to a time and close our service, I want to invite you into a embodied practice, which I love that you all are doing, and I'm going to steal it, of holding our hands from a distance at the end of our screen, at the end of our service. If you are joining by video, please change your view to gallery view rather than speaker view, and then reach out to the hands out to the edge of the screen. You know how to do it. I don't know how to read it, but you know how to do it. And for folks here by phone, place your hand over your heart so that you can be included in this, and bring to mind someone you love or someone you love from the congregation. While I say the words of one of my dear mentors, the Reverend William G. Singford. Spirit of life and love, dear God of nations, there is so much work to do. We only have begun to imagine justice and mercy. Help us hold fast to our vision of what can be. May we see the hope in our history and find the courage and the voice to work for that constant rebirth of freedom and justice. That is our dream. And let the people of the church say, amen. And as we come to the time to close our service, I invite you to follow this benediction with the words, hold on to your dreams. Again, hold on to your dreams. Please join us in typing these words into the chat together.